Hi, church. Today we're going to be studying the difference between when we wait patiently in the Lord and in His presence for Him to guide our lives, and what happens to the contrary when we move away from God's presence and His timings because we can't wait any longer, and what happens in our lives if we do that. And this reminds me of a story that we find in Exodus about Moses leading the Israelites into Mount Sinai and what happens there. Let's start by reading Exodus chapter 19, verse 19 and 20. As the blast of the ram's horn grew louder and louder, Moses spoke, and God thundered his reply. The Lord came down on the top of the Mount Sinai and called Moses to the top of the mountain. So Moses climbed the mountain. These two verses just explain to us that God wanted to have a special time with Moses. Moses is asked to go up to spend some time with him and leave the Israelites behind. Moses doesn't know how long. He just knows that he's going to have an encounter with the Lord. Moses is open to hear God's voice and the direction that God is going to teach him and show him. And that is amazing. When we actually allow the Holy Spirit and God's voice to talk to us, we are able to understand in a deeper capacity what is it that God has specially for our lives. And that's what Moses was doing. He just wanted to spend some time in God's presence to hear what God has to say for him and the Israelites. So as Moses is spending time, if you read through the chapters, you will find that God gives him the 10 Commandments, right, written by his own finger, and how Moses is spending such a quality time in trying to talk to God and relate to him and speak on behalf of the Israelites. So when we're in God's presence, we gain wisdom, we gain knowledge, we gain a sense of confidence that we know that what we're doing comes from the Lord. To the contrary, what are the Israelites doing? And this is where I'm going to be reading from Exodus 32, verse 1 first, and then moving to 5 and 6. And verse 1 says, "Come on," they said, "make us some gods who can lead us. We don't know what happened to this fellow Moses who brought us here from the land of Egypt." Verse 5, Aaron saw how excited the people were, so he built an altar in front of the calf. Then he announced, "Tomorrow will be a festival to the Lord." The people got up early the next morning to sacrifice burnt offerings and peace offerings. After this, they celebrated with feasting and drinking, and they indulged in pagan revelry. So what the Israelites did, instead of waiting in the Lord, right, they did completely the opposite of what Moses was doing. They said, "We can hear from God. We don't know where this Moses, this fellow is, and we want direction." And they go to Aaron's, Moses' brother, and ask them, "Can you please make us an idol, something that we can worship to, something that we may feel the direction coming from?" And sure they did. They actually had a party down there, and this is where the other side comes from. When we're not able to wait in God's presence and hear his wisdom and patiently wait to know when God will answer our prayers, it's very easy to get distracted. It's very easy to grow in anxiety and want to move away from that. And that's exactly what the Israelites did, because they were not connected with the Lord anymore. They just went and have a party, and it says, and they indulge in pagan revelry. And that's sometimes what we tend to do. When we're not connected with God, we tend to move away from him, and then we indulge in activities that are not okay for us to do, things that are not edifying to our soul, things that are not something that God is looking for. So my point today is, What kind of person do you want to be? What kind of person do I want to be? Do I want to be like Moses, spending time in his presence, trying to connect with God, trying to hear his voice and his direction for my life? Or do I want to be like the Israelites who couldn't wait, who were wandering and getting actions from their own desires instead of waiting for the Lord? I really hope that we choose to be like Moses. Spending some time in God's presence, it's always the right thing to do. When we're confused, when we don't know what to do, let's spend time in his presence. Let's not move away and get distracted by what the world has to offer, because that can allow us to do things and act and do actions that do not please the Lord. Church, let's wait patiently in the Lord, because at the right time, he will answer our prayers. Have a nice week, church. Bye.